The middle of the 1990s, a time of significant change. The world was in flux, old systems were crumbling, new ideas were emerging. It was a time of great hope and even greater uncertainty. Technology was rapidly evolving. The internet, once a niche tool for academics and researchers, was becoming mainstream. This new digital landscape promised to connect people across borders and cultures. It also presented a whole new set of challenges and opportunities. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 marked the end of the Cold War. This geopolitical shift led to a more interconnected world. Globalization, for better or worse, was becoming a reality. With it came a complex web of economic, social, and cultural implications. For young people coming of age in this era, it was a time of both excitement and anxiety. They were the first generation to grow up with the internet. They were also facing a world grappling with issues like climate change and economic inequality. The internet was more than just a new technology. It was a cultural phenomenon. It promised to democratize information and connect people in unprecedented ways. For the first time, anyone with a computer and a modem could access a world of information. Early internet adopters were drawn to its promise of anonymity and freedom. Online chat rooms and forums became spaces for people to connect with like-minded individuals. They could share their passions, explore their identities, and engage in discussions about everything from music to politics. This digital frontier was not without its downsides. The internet also became a breeding ground for cyberbullying, misinformation, and online predators. The lack of regulation in these early years meant that the internet was a wild west of sorts. Despite its flaws, the internet held immense potential. It was clear that this technology was going to fundamentally change the way we lived, worked, and interacted with the world. Young people, in particular, were quick to embrace this new digital frontier. They saw it as a tool for self-expression, connection, and change. Globalization was another defining trend of the mid-1990s. The fall of the Berlin Wall had a ripple effect across the globe. It led to the opening of new markets and the rise of multinational corporations. This increased interconnectedness had a profound impact on cultures around the world. American music, movies, and fashion became even more dominant globally. This led to a homogenization of culture, but it also created opportunities for cross-cultural exchange. Young people were at the forefront of this cultural fusion. They embraced music, fashion, and ideas from different parts of the world. The rise of cable television and satellite TV also played a role in this process. It exposed people to different cultures and perspectives. This led to a greater understanding of the world, but also to cultural clashes and anxieties about cultural homogenization. Globalization also had significant economic consequences. It led to job displacement in developed countries. It also created new opportunities in developing countries. This led to increased inequality both within and between countries. The mid-1990s was a time of social and political awakening for many. Issues like racism, sexism, and homophobia were increasingly being challenged. Young people played a pivotal role in these movements. They organized protests, raised awareness, and demanded change. The AIDS epidemic continued to rage in the 1990s. It disproportionately affected the LGBTQ+ community. This led to increased activism and demands for government action. Groups like Eked Up staged die-ins and protests demanding funding for research and treatment. The issue of racial injustice was also at the forefront. The acquittal of 4 police officers and the beating of Rodney King in 1992 sparked the Los Angeles riots. This event highlighted the deep-seated racial tensions in American society. Women continued to fight for equality in the workplace and in society. The issue of sexual harassment gained national attention during the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings in 1991. Anita Hill's testimony about sexual harassment she allegedly endured while working for Thomas sparked a national conversation about sexual harassment and power dynamics. Section 5. Finding your voice. For young people, the mid-1990s was a time of self-discovery and rebellion. They were trying to figure out who they were in a world that seemed to be changing at an unprecedented pace. Many felt alienated from the materialistic values of their parents' generation. They sought out new ways to express themselves and connect with others. Music became a powerful outlet for many young people. The grunge scene, which emerged from Seattle in the early 1990s, captured the angst and alienation of a generation. Bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden gave voice to feelings of disillusionment and a desire for authenticity. Fashion also reflected this sense of rebellion. Grunge fashion was characterized by its rejection of mainstream trends. Ripped jeans, oversized flannels, and Doc Martens became symbols of this anti-fashion movement. This period saw the rise of alternative subcultures. These provided a sense of belonging and community for those who felt like outsiders. From punk rock to hip-hop, from rave culture to the nascent goth scene, young people were finding their tribes and expressing themselves in new and creative ways. Section 6. Grunge and Rebellion. Grunge music was more than just a genre, it was a cultural phenomenon. It captured the zeitgeist of the early 90s. It reflected the anxieties, frustrations, and hopes of a generation. Nirvana's breakthrough album, Nevermind, released in 1991, became an anthem for disaffected youth. Kurt Cobain's raw, confessional lyrics resonated with a generation struggling to find its place in the world. Grunge was characterized by its raw, stripped-down sound, its angsty lyrics, and its DIY aesthetic. It was a rejection of the overblown, commercialized rock music of the 80s. Grunge fashion was equally influential. It was anti-fashion at its finest. It was about comfort, practicality, and authenticity. It was a rejection of the materialistic, image-obsessed culture of the 80s. Section 7. The Digital Underground. While grunge dominated the airwaves, a different kind of revolution was brewing in the digital underground. The internet was still in its infancy, but it was already becoming a hub for creativity, innovation, and counterculture. Early online communities were small and fragmented. They were mainly populated by tech-savvy early adopters. But as internet access became more widespread, these communities grew in size and influence. Online forums and bulletin boards became spaces for people to connect with like-minded individuals from all over the world. They discussed shared interests, debated politics, and shared their creative works. The internet also facilitated the rise of independent media and alternative voices. Zines, once the domain of punk rockers and DIY enthusiasts, found a new home online. They provided a platform for marginalized voices and countercultural perspectives. Section 8. The Search for Identity. The mid-90s was a time of intense identity formation for many young people. They were trying to figure out who they were in a world that seemed to be changing at an unprecedented pace. Traditional sources of identity such as religion, family, and community were losing their hold on many young people. They were looking for new ways to define themselves and their place in the world. The proliferation of subcultures and alternative lifestyles provided young people with a menu of options for self-expression. They could experiment with different identities and find communities where they felt accepted and understood. This period saw the rise of identity politics, as marginalized groups asserted their right to be seen and heard. Issues of race, gender, sexuality, and class became central to the formation of individual and collective identities. Section 9. True Potentials, 1995. True Potentials. Season 3 taps into the energy and anxieties of the mid-90s. The characters are all trying to find their place in a world on the cusp of major change. The internet, grunge music, and the various social and political movements of the time serve as the backdrop for the characters' journeys of self-discovery. The show explores the excitement and uncertainty of this era. It captures the spirit of rebellion and the search for authenticity that defined a generation. As the characters navigate the challenges of adolescence, they are forced to confront their own biases, their hopes for the future, and their place in a world that is becoming increasingly complex and interconnected. True Potentials reminds us that the 90s were not just a decade of grunge and dial-up internet. They were a time of profound social and cultural change, a time when the world began to resemble the one we live in today.